podcasting since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts Radio Network, kingofpodcasts.com.
The official start of summer movie season starts now.
The King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Broadcasters Podcast. Here is the King of Podcasts.
So I'm coming up on about 30 movies I've seen this year so far. And Memorial Day weekend is here, which means it's time for the summer movie season. I haven't done an episode like this in a while, but it is time enough because there's some decent movies to go and watch out coming up this month and into the coming months. Broadcasters Podcast, episode 385. This is King of Podcasts. Welcome you to the program. As you always join me here, and I appreciate all of you that do find this show and find it because, of course, it's a little passion project of mine, and I don't expect the biggest audience in the world to be on this program because I keep it very industry-like, but there's times I have fun like this where we're going to talk about movies, at least the ones I know I'm going to be looking at and be interested in and see which ones are going to do well. So we're going to go through what there is. And first off, the AP gives a pretty comprehensive guide of what movies are coming out for theaters and streaming for summertime. So it starts now. This weekend, Lilo Stitch, Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 2 lead off the summer box office movie season. It's not the streaming. Now, you might have heard me talk on WPHT with Lou Pate because I played back the episode and I put it here on the podcast for all of you to hear a couple of weeks ago, an extra that I had done. I thought I did a pretty good job of convincing people why I thought the movie theater idea was much better. And you tell me if I was completely off in my mindset of why I think the movie theater setup would be better. Maybe I just go ahead and back and play it for you. I could just go ahead and go back to exactly what I said and make my point pretty clear. I think I wasn't wrong about it. Here's exactly what I said, just a couple of highlights from about almost 2 weeks ago.
More than half of the money that's spent on the movie is going to go towards the movie theater company, right? That's a gamble on them to see how much money they're going to make off of it. For Netflix and for all these other streaming outlets, their thing is this. When they're trying to have movies out, okay, you have their movies that they have. Of course, Tetrin isn't going to talk about his own Netflix original movies. They do one a week. It's like home video. And, the quality that you get what you pay for. So if there's other movies that are going to be streaming on Netflix that from the movie theaters, you don't know when they're going to show up. You don't know when they're going to be released so you can find them on streaming. You're lucky if you find it on your preview screen for Prime or Netflix or whatever, if you find those movies again. At least for me, I know when they're going to play. I want to watch it. I don't have to go looking around for it. And they don't promote the movies that come out from the theaters and switch over. Very rarely, unless they produced it.
So that's my point on that. Part of it is that I hate the way that it has to be done with streaming because right now I look at stories that are just clickbait from different publications that they love to go and just tell you, hey, this new movie just came out that's still in theaters. Then they give you, we're going to get a release date for streaming. Okay. But remember, for those that are going to be following along, if you want to go and catch the movie as you want, it's one thing if you don't want to go to the movie theater because, you don't want to be around other people being loud and you still want the intimate experience, right? But then there's a part where I don't know if there's that many people that will go ahead and wait for streaming and then actually pay a pretty hefty price to rent the movie out on streaming. That's the thing I don't know that many people do because that price tag is what, $20, $22? Like you're paying the full theater price to watch it at home. And then some of these places, I don't know if they even give you the full access to the video to watch as much as you want. I think some of them are either have 30 days until it expires, or you only get a couple days to actually watch the movie. I know Amazon Prime is like that. So you're behooving to the fact that the streaming service is going to go ahead and just pick whenever they want to go and put the movie out. And then when you go and find it, hopefully if you can find it, then you're relegated to the fact that, all right, well, you might not be able to watch it like you want because you're going to still have to pay for it because the people that make the movie, the studios are still going to try to make their money on the streaming services through video downloads. They're going to try. They still think there's a model for that. Instead of, after the window's done, then the movie goes to a streaming service. And see, some of them are just kind of out there that you're not even familiar. If it's a MGM movie, it goes to Amazon Prime basically in about 30 days. If it's a movie from Universal, it goes to Peacock direct. If it's from Warner Brothers, it goes direct to HBO Max. It's now HBO Max again, by the way. So you can pick one of those, or if it's Disney Plus, I don't know if it goes right to Disney Plus after 30 days or 45 days. But it's so confusing anyway. You never know when these movies are going to be there, unless you're actually maybe possibly going to see on your home screen on your app or wherever you're looking at streaming service, maybe the home screen will have something about it. But they don't care once they get the movie to streaming when they want to put the movie out, and they don't care about charging you more for it. But I know the mindset of the audience out here. You don't want to pay for the movie. You don't want to pay for the experience because it's too much. I get it. The tickets are too much. But then how much are you going to pay to wait to go and watch it on streaming? Because the convenience of streaming, it's like, do you want to just be like what it was back in the day where if you wanted to see the broadcast premiere of a movie, it takes like 2 years like it does for a movie in the movie theater, and then it makes it over to television? Remember that's how it used to be on network TV? It will take maybe 2-3 years for a movie to go ahead and make it from the movie theater, go through its run, and then make it onto television. And then pay cable changed that, but we paid for pay cable for the access to that. You can't even guarantee that now with Netflix or Amazon Prime or all the others. You can't. It's not very clear. That's one of the contentions I have when it comes to the movie theaters and why I don't want to go and watch a movie where it's somewhere else and I can't find it. I don't want to do that. So that's one comment I made. Here's another comment I also made with Lou Pate on WPHT, more about the movie theater experience.
There's groups right now within the major theater chains and Cinema United, which is the big collective of a National Association of Theater Owners that renamed itself last year. They're going to put billions and billions of dollars in the next 3 to 5 years to renovate all the movie theaters that are out there. But first things first is that after COVID, all these companies were struggling because they were losing money from what happened by not having the theaters open and not be able to get the audiences there. So they've recovered from that now. And now what they're doing is they've had to let some theaters go. They've had to go and they're working on trying to reconstruct some others, get through bankruptcy. And now we're back to the point where, like, the theaters are back to reinvesting. So what theater provided is saying, yeah, there's a lot of outdating where the theaters are just been a little bit neglected. I know that the fact is they're going to do a lot of things for it. And some of the ideas is they're going to help create screens more like IMAX. So they would have, if you can't get IMAX screens, which people will go to movie theaters for that and spend the price for that. But you can also recreate the same thing where each of these movie theater chains have their own version of IMAX, which like, here's this big 70-foot screen, here's the sound. It might not be IMAX, but close enough.
And there are going to be movies coming up now that will absolutely warrant the IMAX experience if you can get to it. So right off the bat, we already know that Mission Impossible will give you that feel. But the movie you want to go and watch in the movie theater that will not serve justice if you try to watch it at home first is F1. Racing movie. It's going to have the sound. You're going to feel like you're on the track or right near the track watching the action. You don't want to have that where it's not set that way. And I know, listen, you can try to replicate it. You can get Bluetooth earbuds or headphones, and you can try to watch it on television. And you can try to feel comfortable in your chair and get the microwave popcorn and make it feel like an experience. You can turn the lights off and see if you can try to do that. Or if you want to watch it with somebody else, you got to be able to have that whole surround sound experience. And how loud can you put that movie out there unless you get like the movie theater set up at home? I mean, it's not even easy to go and do that. It's just much easier to go and watch in the theater. I know that the price point is a lot. Listen, I get it. I've looked at the prices. I know I could be a little bit pretentious because I think about the fact that I don't pay the full price for movies because I already pay out my $26 a month to watch on subscription. but I'm well aware of the prices right now in the theater. So at my Regal Theater now, $15.89 for a single ticket. Regular price, and that's evening movies. I don't think they even have a matinee price. I don't think that before 6 p.m. price even applies. Seniors, it's going to be a couple bucks less, but that's about it. Children, maybe a little bit less, but that's all. And then when it comes to the RPX, which is their IMAX version of movies, $20. And I'll know that price because of the fact that there's a $4 charge. Even with the subscription, I'm still paying $4 to go and watch the movie on RPX. But I'm going to watch it on RPX. But I'm watching it on discount. If I'm catching 5-6 movies a month and putting out 26, I'm making out pretty good. And for the most part, with the extra concession savings deals that they have in there, maybe an extra $10. What I'd spend maybe $10 a week on concessions, done. So I can't complain about that. For me, if you can do the movie theater experience, and listen, you don't even have to go ahead and settle for a year-long subscription. If you want to just do it for 3 months, say if it's you or somebody else, it doesn't hurt to go and take the experience. Catch maybe 12 movies in 3 months? Put yourself down for a 90-day plan, and I mean, overall, you're going to spend less than about less than $200 together for the whole summer to watch movies. And then concessions again, that's going to be the extra part. But I mean, for me, I always think about the fact that the concessions, that's where the movie theater is going to make their most of their money. So, and the people over there in that movie theater, they work pretty hard for what I look at, keep it pretty clean, at least the one I go to. And there have been renovations that have been made in my movie theater. So I'll go. The multiplexes they are working on, you might not see it on the outside because some of those theaters have not been rebuilt. They're not building new ones, but they're taking the existing ones and trying to go ahead and renovate. So they're going to do that. Better seats are coming. Better screens are coming. Better sounds coming. All that is here. And some of that's already coming up right now. I didn't make that point as yet, but we already know that some of the movie theaters are already getting those renovations now. Just find out if there's one near you that does. And if you can, still make it an experience, because there is something to be said about some of the movies you can watch. There are going to be moments that you don't want to miss. The blockbusters you do want to go and catch. And there's some blockbusters I might not go see, but there are some that I'm going to see. And it's quite expansive. So right off the bat, we can also look at what movies they have for streaming coming up as well. But, we'll look specifically on the box office side. I will say this first of all. There is something to be said about the movies that have already come out that are still going to be playing right now into Memorial Day weekend that are doing pretty well. Sinners is still a pretty good movie that go ahead and watch right now, making over $300 million worldwide. Pretty good vampire movie. And people have been watching it. So, that did pretty well, better than expected for an R-rated film. Actually, a mostly, predominantly black cast. Talking about vampires. Well, at least the main cast is predominantly black. For that kind of movie, they're going to be like this, and it's not a Jordan Peele production. This is a Ryan Coogler production, but the movie's actually quite good, quite interesting. Now, Thunderbolts wasn't bad, giving you a restart of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, getting into Avengers Doomsday, and the other two other Avenger movies that are coming out, which now have been delayed, I think, 6 months to a year, into late 2026 and 2027. Also had Final Destination Bloodlines that also just came out this past weekend. That did pretty well, and people are really all caught up in that. If you're in the horror, not for me. I would say don't watch Hurry Up Tomorrow. That movie will probably leave theaters quicker than it made it, because I don't know what happened, but The Weeknd, thinking he's Prince and thought he could just put a movie together about himself. The soundtrack's good, but the movie, not so much. It gives me Xanadu vibes. Xanadu vibes, or Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, when the Bee Gees was starting that movie, they try to go and do that. Yeah, there's just sometimes some of these music movies are just not going to work well. I know they try to do it because they think it's going to do well because of who's going to be in it. But no, not this one. No. So it's pretty bad. Now, this weekend we have Lilo and Stitch. What excellent job Disney's done to go ahead and get this movie viral, because the Stitch character now has been all over the place, and you can't get away from the doll. You can't get away from the Stitch monster kind of thing, just to kind of running around on my screen promoting that movie, running along the roller coaster of the Regal Movie Theater intro, the one we have. I don't get Nicole Kidman. Sorry, we don't have the pleasure of that. But we get the roller coaster ride. And, this time we have Stitch that's out there that's just like, right? He's making his voice. That's coming out this weekend. Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning is coming out this weekend. It's surprising they're going to wait for how long this is going on to get hit to this point, but okay, it's fine. Tom Cruise's last ride as Ethan Hunt. And what's surprising to me is that with Mission Impossible, I couldn't tell you the other names of the other characters. I know the characters of who they are as the stars' names, but I don't know the characters' names. I can't remember them. I know Ving Rhames is in it. I know Simon Pegg's in it. I know that Haley Atwell's in it this time around. Rebecca Ferguson was, but then she got killed off in the last one. Sorry if I'm spoiling it to you, but that's what happened. But it'll be good. More death-defying feats of, risk-taking from Tom Cruise. So we'd expect. And, of course, the customary chase that he has to always do when he's in every one of these movies. So this works. And imagine, this whole series, 29 years in the making. 1996 was the very first one. And I will admit, it took me a little while to get into the Mission Impossible groove because I didn't watch the first couple. I think the first 4 I missed. And then I finally got into it, went back, watched the others. I was never the biggest, hugest Mission Impossible person, but it was good. I mean, they're all fine movies. I'm just sometimes, some blockbusters just don't have the staying power to make me go ahead and watch over and over and over. It's not like that. It's just good popcorn fare. May 30th, you got the Karate Kid Legends movie. So Jackie Chan going back on the last Karate Kid franchise movie and bringing back Ralph Macchio, putting that together. Okay, Best of Generations, fine, that works for me. Will be the movie I probably watch this next week or so. Phoenician Scheme, a Ryan Anderson movie. It's not one of those Wes Anderson. And it's like the comedy with the whole weird, surreal kind of feel to it. I'm not into that. I don't know if any of his movies I've ever watched. I know some people are really big about that, but that's okay. That's fine. June 6th is Anna de Armas in the John Wick spinoff, Ballerina, with John Wick cameo appearance, Keanu Reeves. That'll be good, and I'll be all in for that. Then you have a movie called The Life of Chuck, which is a supernatural story of an ordinary man named Charles Krantz, told in 3 chapters. And has a pretty big ensemble cast. Tom Hiddleston, Mark Hamill, Chiwetel Ejiofor, Mia Sara, Benjamin Pajak, and Karen Gillian and all that. And then there's movies like this. Okay, Deep Cover is out June 12th. It's on Prime Video. Bryce Dallas Howard plays an improv comedy teacher recruited by an undercover cop for a mission where she enlists 2 of her students. Yeah, when you look at what they have for Netflix and some of the movies they offer, yeah, it feels like made for cable, made for video. Because home video bliss right there for those kind of movies. Now, one of the movies that's supposed to do really well is How to Train Your Dragon. It's unlike most live adaptations of animated movies, this is meant to be a really immersive film, dialing up the urgency and peril just to pull the audience in and make them feel like these dragons are real. You can own one, you can fly on the back of one. That's going to be the appeal of that. I never watched How to Train Your Dragon. They're making a big thing about it. They're doing a lot of promotion behind it, a lot of merchandising. Burger King's going to have their own menu for it. They're all doing that part. And I guess with some people, when they're going to have How to Train Your Dragon, you kind of get that feeling of Game of Thrones, getting back to dragons again. So that's probably what people want to go and watch. We got a rom-com in the middle of the summer, Materialists, with Dakota Johnson playing a matchmaker torn between 2 prospects, Chris Evans and Pedro Pascal. And there you go. He just bring it on and see what comes of it. The movie I'll probably watch that weekend, June 10th, The Unholy Trinity. Pierce Brosnan, Samuel L. Jackson, a Western set in 1870s Montana. Sign me up. I'm taking a ticket. And then June 20th, we get big on the horror movies. And if I have to hear that, get it up again, thing, like whatever the 28 years later thing is, they bring that all together. Danny Boyle directs, Alex Garland writes it, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Jodie Comer, Ralph Fiennes are all in this. I saw so many promos of this movie, I just didn't want to go and get around this. But again, this is horror movies. I'm just not into it. It's just not my thing. F1 is one of the big featured movies, June 27th. Brad Pitt playing the best that there never was, F1 driver Sonny Hayes. They're trying to say this is more or less based on the Lewis Hamilton story, the young kid from Britain that has really come forward to go and really get the cars out there and really bring a lot of people to Formula One racing. Real racing cars were used. Driver Lewis Hamilton consulted, and a new camera system was developed to give audiences an immersive experience. So this movie is going to get some real run off of this. And Joseph Kosinski, who did Top Gun Maverick, will be part of this high-octane film. It looks good. I can guarantee that if I watch this, like the sound of the track and the cars, that's going to be awesome. I look forward to it. They've been promoting the craziness out of this. And the second trailer I've seen for it looks really promising. You know what almost looks pretty interesting too is Megan 2.0. The dancing doll's back. And they're really going up on the campiness on this time around, which that's probably the right way to go with this. It's like Megan is the new Chucky, pretty much, right? And don't ask me, I just don't watch these movies, but like the horror movies are just not my thing. Very rare I'd even watch one. July 2nd, we get to Jurassic World Rebirth. Look, I had never watched any of the other Jurassic Park movies after the first one. I think I watched the second and the third, but like really, I'm not much into this. But they're going with the new cast. They're obviously trying to go through a new era of Jurassic movies. And they're trying to go back to the original. So Scarlett Johansson, Mahershala Ali, Jonathan Bailey, putting this together. I don't know, Scarlett Johansson gives me like the whole Lara Croft Tomb Raider kind of feel to it with this movie, but it's their plan. I'm not much into it. Talk about a movie that's made for cable, made for TV, made for video. Heads of State on Prime Video. I will probably watch this, though. It's an action comedy. Idris Elba plays the British Prime Minister. John Cena is the U.S. President. Forced to work together, along with Priyanka Chopra Jonas's MI6 agent, to defeat a foreign adversary. Look, we had, Meet the Presidents, I think it was. What was it? Jack Lemmon and James Garner, right? We're going to get to that kind of thing again. It's like buddy comedy, buddy cop kind of feel to it. Okay. July 11th, we get back to Superman. And there's been a lot to be said about what's coming up with Superman because it's James Gunn that's directing it. A new Superman and David Corenswet trying to give us a feel of a Christopher Reeve type of feel to the Superman role. Look, the casting's good. Nicholas Hoult and Lex Luthor, I feel interested in that. Rachel Brosnahan looks like a good Lois Lane. From everything I've seen of the promos in the trailers for this, and the fact that David Corenswet is making the attempt to make sure that the Clark Kent character stays nerdy with a higher pitched voice and a little bit insecure of himself versus the Christopher Reeve version of Superman, or the Superman character who is very strong and confident and secure and, brave and compassionate and all the good things, right? They're actually going to try to create that real dynamic to that. It looks like the DCU has a chance to really go ahead and put things together. Let's see if Superman can be put together good this time. I don't expect the 1978 version of it, but I don't mind another reinterpretation of Superman. Among the ones that we've already had, look, I've watched most of them. I watched a lot of those old George Reeves versions of Superman. I watched obviously the Christopher Reeve movies. I saw all four. The one with Brandon Routh, it was okay, but very unmemorable. Honestly, for me, Kevin Spacey as Lex Luthor was really good. The Batman vs. Superman deal with, the Henry Cavill stuff, the Man of Steel, not bad. But again, doesn't give me anything where, like, I'm going back to that again. Or Justice League. The Superman role for Henry Cavill was fine. He looked the role, but there wasn't much more to it. It's just like you found somebody to fit the role, but there was not much more to him. And that's been the biggest part, is that they have not been able to find a Superman that fits what Christopher Reeve was, because that guy was just a different type. But again, I grew up on it. And watched movies in the theater, and the way those movies were done, it was the first time we heard the John Williams score, and you really got into it. And of course, the late Gene Hackman, I mean, he created an amazing Lex Luthor. And, how many times do I quote? I mean, I quote so much of Superman 2, or the first one as well. Like, it's just, just think about the fact that if I have to go north somewhere, I will do it like I will do in the word of Lex Luthor. North, Miss Tessbacher, north. Going to the Fortress of Solitude. Yeah, there we go. There's a movie I saw that was going to be coming out in theaters called Skill House. 50 Cent stars in a horror about influencers who were lured into a content house, forced to compete in deadly challenges. That's coming up. Of course, we were not going to get away from the box office season for the summer without a reboot or just a recreation. I Know What You Did Last Summer. This is the 1997 movie. Jennifer Love Hewitt, Freddie Prinze Jr. reprised their roles. They're back in this. And Madeline Klein, Chase Sui Wonders, Jonah Howard, King, and Tariq Withers featured in this version. And, you're going up against an iconic movie, and I Know What You Did Last Summer. And to try to bring this off again, look, if they were able to get Scream to go ahead and be reprised as a franchise to keep going, right? If they were able to go ahead and reboot that once again, and now Scream is a franchise that's back up and running again, yeah, why not? So they're hoping that I Know What You Did Last Summer will cause that to happen. A new Smurfs. It's animated. Rihanna has some new song that goes out there with it, and she's playing Smurfette. She'll have the voice. I don't know. Not big on that. It's like they do what they want to do. Interesting movie. They have Eddington. Joaquin Phoenix is doing a movie about a standoff between a small-town sheriff and a mayor in the early months of the COVID-19 lockdowns. Pedro Pascal, Emma Stone, Austin Butler co star. That'll be a movie I'll probably catch. So that's the week after Superman, so I'll probably be watching into that. That looks good. Eddington is the name of that movie. Eddington. Fantastic Four First Steps. Now, good cast. They are definitely going with the WandaVision retro futuristic 1960s look. It looks really good the way they have it set up. That I like all that. Pretty cool. And if they pull it off and they can really give that whole 60s feel to it and just encompass and vibe with it, which obviously people love WandaVision for that. So let's see if they can make it work out. We'll see what happens. And I was never really big on the Fantastic Four. I didn't even watch the last one. I was trying to watch bits and pieces, but I never was like, that wasn't the comic I was really much excited by. Like, I know some people are really much have an affinity for that, but not for me. I'm just weird like that. Sometimes it's just where I'm at. I'm just not in for everybody else. It's the nonconformist in me. What can I say? A second Happy Gilmore. Of course, in the home of Adam Sandler movies ever since, Netflix. Still not going to watch it. Just not going to see it. No. No, thank you. There's a movie called Together. I just saw trailers for that, for Dave Franco and Alison Brie playing a frighteningly codependent couple in an event of body horror that had Sundance crowds raving. And then going into August, another Bad Guys. And voices will include Sam Rockwell, Mark Maron, Craig Robinson, Aquafina, and Anthony Ramos. I never watched the first one. I was going to watch it. I was thinking about that. Naked Gun, they are bringing back. And Liam Neeson is going to take the role that Leslie Nielsen had. Liam Neeson going into comedy. I don't know. Maybe it'll work. He will be Frank Drebin Jr. And it's an irreverent new entry from Lonely Island veteran Akiva Schaffer. Paul Walter Hauser and Pamela Anderson will be in the movie. We'll see how this works out. But I'm going to watch Naked Gun. I will go see it. A Freakier Friday. So Jimmy Lee Curtis, Lindsay Lohan are back. Again, Freaky Friday, a movie that was done, 30 years ago? No, excuse me, 40 years ago. And now we're going to get back to this again. And when they rebrought this back and did a new version of Freaky Friday, now we're going to do it again, some 25, 30 years later? So, 20 years later, I guess, right? 25 years later, something like that. I'm not sure. It's whatever. Okay. Nobody 2. Bob Odenkirk's former assassin Hutch Manziel can't catch a break. Keanu Reeves will be part of the fun on this, so that'll be cool. I'm in all this. Nobody was a sleeper hit, but it was really good. I did enjoy it. Netflix will have a new streaming movie called The Thursday Murder Club. Helen Mirren, Pierce Brosnan, Ben Kingsley, Celia Imrie. They're retirees who spend their time solving cold cases in their adaptation of Richard Osman's bestseller, directed by Chris Columbus. Wow, it's like old school, all over there. The Roses, a modern reimagining of The War of the Roses. So the movie that was post Romancing the Stone. Michael Douglas, Kathleen Turner. They're going to try to go with it again now. Olivia Colman, Benedict Cumberbatch are the feuding couple. And they've brought a lot of the people around here, to try to create some levity to it. It's supposed to look kind of funny. I didn't really get any ha-has from it, so we'll figure out how it works out. August 29th also will have Caught Stealing, and that's from filmmaker Darren Aronofsky, based on the Charlie Houston books about ex-baseball player, which is Austin Butler, who gets tangled up in New York's criminal underworld in the 1990s. Zoe Kravitz, Virginia King, Liev Schreiber, Matt Smith, Bad Bunny are starring in that. That I'm all into. I just saw a trailer for that. Not even a trailer, but just like a quick blurb on TikTok. They're just starting to go ahead and promote it now. 3 months ahead. So that's good. Looks, always towards the end of the summer, do they have some really good movies that come out? And Costing looks like something I'm going to really enjoy. We're going to find out how this is going to work out. That's what it looks like right now with the movie season so far. And so I'm excited about it. It looks interesting to me. And I want to just find out if we turn out things really well. So that's the movie theaters and the setup going on for that. And I could use some help because right now, let's see if they can actually really make some real money coming up with all that they're doing. So I'm looking forward to what they have. But the best part will be, I'm not going to be feeling like I'm going to be stuck here without movies to watch. Because even for me, I've caught a lot of movies this year. I have not been to the point where I've had to go and watch other movies, like just kind of find movies just to kind of catch up, right? I haven't been to that point yet. Not really these days. So far, it's been pretty good. Can't complain about that. I mean, already right now, one thing I love that the subscription I have for Regal, they actually now let me go ahead and purchase 5 tickets ahead. So I've already advanced tickets now for Ballerina, Mission Impossible, and there's other movies I've been catching previously already so far. So that includes Fight or Flight I saw. That was 2 weeks ago. And Hurry Up Tomorrow I saw last week. But consistently have been able to go and find movies to go and watch. So I'm at least happy to say I've had that. At the least. All right, so let's move on to some other news before we wrap things up. The FCC chairman, Brandon Carr, was speaking and testifying in front of Congress, in front of the House Appropriations Subcommittee hearing, and there were questions that were asked of him about the regulatory moves, budget decisions, and actions against DEI practitioners. So this happened yesterday as I record. One of the things that I want to make up here that is important was he talked about the actions coming up about deregulation, the delete deregulatory initiative, which is aimed at eliminating outdated or unlawful rules, saying that he updated lawmakers on agency staffing reductions, which was less than 100 employees from fiscal 2025, and that the SEC has saved about $6.7 million for the remainder of the fiscal year due to trimmed contract expenses. And he's urging Congress to restore the SEC's authority to auction spectrum and affirmed his intention to continue modernizing and streamlining the agency. StoryFromTheStreet.com talked about all the issues when it comes to the bankruptcies being done by radio stations. And there's an online outlet that just had to file for bankruptcy as well. Chapter 15, as a matter of fact. We'll talk about that in a moment. But this StoryFromTheStreet.com, they talk about the fact that currently, online music streaming service AccuRadio has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy after reaching an impasse in negotiations with Sound Exchange and seeking a lawsuit settlement over royalties owed for services. So, as I said before, if we got the local Radio Freedom Act the act that would actually pay more royalties to musicians from the radio stations. That would actually be more of a benefit. But then the thing was, much like AccuRadio, that is unfortunately bearing the brunt of this right now. They're not even going to be able to survive the fact that they can't pay the royalties. Now they have to go to bankruptcy to be able to go ahead and settle with what they have. In Canada, there is a distress radio station operator called Local First Media Group. They have 6 affiliates. 6 affiliates that are part with them, which were placed in the receivership in Canada on February 21st. They filed for Chapter 15 bankruptcy protection, seeking recognition as a foreign main proceeding to protect their assets in the U.S. The receiver for the Canada-based radio station companies filed in the Eastern District of Texas in their bankruptcy court, seeking court protections to prevent the debtors' stakeholders from commencing on continuing actions in U.S. courts that would interfere with the receiver's Canadian case. Now, Chapter 15 filings invoke an automatic stay on any court proceedings against the debtors while the case proceeds in Canada. So there are 6 debtors in the case, some that are operating in the United States. The debtors owe about $8.2 million on a secured loan to a creditor, ATB Financial, based in Alberta, Canada. The debtors defaulted on November 2023, according to court papers, and then there was a forbearance agreement. August 2024, another one January 2025. So all the parameters to get money paid back, they were not able to do anything. Now, in America, the debtors operate 3 studios with cell towers, an additional cell tower site in Alaska, a studio with a cell tower and 2 additional cell towers in Texas, and a cell tower site in Arkansas. And this is after they go through the constant issues right now with the radio industry itself with all their struggles. And they decided to go ahead and go chapter and verse on some of this. iHeartRadio had filed for Chapter 11 in 2018, handing control of the network to its lenders in exchange for $10 billion in debt. Odyssey, the second largest radio station owner in the country, last January 2024, filed for Chapter 11, seeking to reduce its debt from $1.9 billion to $350 million and hand ownership of the company to the bondholders. But then after these top 2 radio station chains filed for bankruptcy, several smaller radio station owners followed the lead and also filed for bankruptcy. And once again, the domino effect remains. Radio's not running in true practice right now. They are constantly being allowed to run irresponsibly, accrue major debt, not serve the public interest, because these big, large ownerships of stations where they don't know what to do with these stations, they don't know how to operate them, they don't know how to monetize them or incentivize them, and then they take up the debt. They can't cover the debt, and then they're going to be called on their markers. And that's what keeps happening all the time. It's like radio programmers think, oh, if we just put a station on and just put music on it, we should just be able to get advertisers. Like, really, I feel like there's a naivete among these people that are not radio people in the first place, right? They're just salespeople. Well, we got this product. We should get sales. It should be easy for us. Look, here's a place where you can put your advertising. Why don't you promote here? Why don't you? Oh, why don't you do something that's actually entertaining, informative, compelling? Maybe program a station that people will actually listen to, that they will actually engage with personalities that will inherently persuade people to go ahead and support the advertisers, support their sponsors. It's as if they think the music is just going to go ahead and sell itself. And it's not. Because also the music you're playing, if it's new music, is usually just kind of outdated because these radio stations don't want to go and play anything new. They don't want to take a chance on any new music discovery. They refuse to do that. Meanwhile, it would help their relationship with the record labels. Maybe they could go out and work off each other. There's something to be said about radio being a way, which I said, if the record labels would go back to radio stations and get them to work together on artists that are coming out with new music or just other artists just to get them exposed. And see if you can try to get to be a tastemaker. Start showing people that there's something to be said about if you want to catch music and you want to, get a chance to be exposed to new music. How do you normally do that? And it used to be with radio, that's what was the reason for it. I can't tell you how many times I was listening to the radio and I would hear a new song and I would have to go and find out where can I find that song. Imagine that. How many songs can be noticed if you had a chance to have somebody introduce the song, title an artist, give a backstory on it, and then learn somebody to go and give a reason to kind of listen to music more. One of those things that I always think about the fact is that, so I just finished a book on Steely Dan, The Night Fly. It's an audio book I just finally got a chance to listen to and I finished it up. And even before then, I was starting to go and slowly start getting my interest in Steely Dan music. Now I'm a big fan. I like a lot of their music. I got dozens and dozens of their songs all over my playlists, which, by the way, my Spotify playlist, you can actually find all of them on my website, kingofpodcasts.com. You can find all those Spotify playlists. If you want to go ahead and be a follower, please do. There are some people that haven't been able to go and got started on that, so I appreciate that. So if you like to do that, please do so. So back to the news here. Edison's Share of Ear survey, which is an ongoing thing. They now have some key findings about AM/FM streaming audiences. People that listen to AM/FM radio through streaming. First of all, you have to be subjected to some really bad advertising, okay? Usually it's not even good local ads. It's probably just some kind of fluff, PSA, or some kind of promos for a show, and they're just really poorly programmed. Let's just make that point clear. Let me put it to you like this. When I listen to an AM/FM radio station on streaming, I feel like the commercials go longer because of how they're set on there. So they're finding out a couple of things. First of all, AM/FM radio streaming shares have grown and now beat Pandora and Spotify for streaming. I don't know what that means, but okay. In 2017, ad-supported Pandora-led streaming platforms with a 9 share among persons 18 plus, followed by AM/FM radio streaming at 6%, ad-supported Spotify at 2%. But now AM/FM radio is the leading streaming platform, 8% share, beating both ad-supported Spotify and ad-supported Pandora. I don't know a lot of people that listen to live streaming on Spotify and Pandora itself, but that's what they try to say. I don't know if that makes much of a difference. Most of the audio streaming occurs at home. So 65% of all the time spent with ad-supported Spotify occurs at home. 74% of AM/FM radio streaming happens at home. I don't know. It's much easier to go and get your Spotify to go and load up on a smart speaker or on your Bluetooth. You can just go open up the app instead of having to go and look around and find the radio station on streaming. If you have it on a particular app that you have to find the station on, whether it's TuneIn or Radio Garden or whatever you use, iHeartRadio or the Odyssey app, whatever it is. They also say that AM/FM streaming to your AM/FM radio campaign generates incremental reach and amplified frequency. Spoken word programming formats have 2.5 times the larger shares via the AM/FM radio stream. And ages 18 to 34-year-olds, AM/FM radio streaming shares for news, talk, and sports are shockingly large. The one thing I think that I will always go out of my way to go and listen to streaming on AM/FM radio is for sports. But it's not for the music stations. It's not for anything else. Because the one thing I can tolerate with the sports programming is that you will have advertising on there. But the advertising has to be constructed in a way that it's not sports talk. I'm talking about sports play-by-play. If you listen to sports play-by-play on radio, it's not that bad at all. It's actually pretty bearable. Because if you're listening for football or basketball, like those commercials are usually 60 to 90 seconds. Unless you're listening to pregame, postgame stuff, that's one thing. But like the actual game itself, the ads are not so bad. Plus, for sports programming, especially play-by-play, local radio stations get some pretty good advertisers on there. You actually get quality advertising on there. Can't say the same for like, sometimes if I listen on A-Spin Radio and I hear some coverage on there, man, those ads suck. Some of the national ads they put out there, there's just no effort being put whatsoever. Nothing at all. So Spotify for Creators, which is a pretty cool app, and I do put quite a bit of clips of my content to kind of preview episodes on there. They're doing a thing where they're revamping podcast play counts after a creator pushback. So now, Spotify had plans to begin showing play counts for podcasts. Kind of like how you would see on YouTube. You can see how many people are actually playing podcasts. But then it was criticism from producers of smaller and niche shows, fearing the numbers would do more to dissuade people from listening to their episodes. So they were worried about, like, if somebody doesn't have that many plays, you feel like, well, nobody's going to listen to your show. But now there's a new revamped feature of this Spotify for Creators where plays will now appear as milestones, updating each time a new threshold is reached for an episode, starting at 50,000 downloads. The play counts will not be visible to podcast listeners, but the exact play counts will be visible to all creators and publishers and their analytics dashboards on Spotify Creators and Megaphone, regardless of how many plays an episode has received. And like I said, my Spotify plays, they could be a lot better, but the analytics are really good, and at least I get a good sample off of it. So I know what the audience looks like for all these shows. And I can determine what programming works best for those, which is cool. Sean Ross over at Ross on Radio, his column on radioinsight.com, insight.com. He puts a story out about the classic hits format. So those stations that might be a Jack FM, or they are playing music of it's the newer version of oldies. So 70s, 80s, 90s, current day. So they're talking about now the 90s will be the center lane of the classic hits. And so some programmers are trying to go ahead and start looking at if they can add 90s music in. And so there are now titles for classic hit stations that are being added in 2025 from the late 90s and early 2000s. So that means some of the songs that are in the 90s, late 90s to early 2000s, that could be alternative, that could be the boy bands, that could be the Christina Aguilera's, the Britney Spears, Jessica Simpson types coming out. They might start adding those songs into the mix. Backstreet Boys and Sync, that's what we're talking about. So with some of the stations they looked at right now, like Blink-182, All Small Things, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Other Side, Sublime Santeria, Alanis Morissette songs like Hand in My Pocket or You Learn, Backstreet Boys, I Want It That Way, En Vogue's My Lovin' You're Never Gonna Get It, TLC's Creep in Those Scrubs, Killer's Mr. Brightside, Got Ye's Somebody That I Used to Know, Offspring's The Kids Aren't Alright, Smashing Pumpkins' Landslide. Those are songs being played on K-Earth 101, which has been predominantly an oldie station for many years, but now it's classic hits, much like WCBS FM in New York. So some of this is actually starting to get added into it. So that classic hits are not playing so many songs that are from the 70s. They're trying to be playing more from the 80s. Now I want to be playing more from the 90s. So all these classic hit stations right now are usually playing maybe 1, 2, 3 songs per hour from the 90s to start picking up with the fact that their audience that might be listening to 90s music is already getting old enough to be listening to radio or sticking around with radio because that's the last generation that really did. So they're not even trying to do anything where they want to go ahead and have a setup for classic hip hop like they tried to do back in the day, or have the classic rock stations play alternative music. There's been a little bit of an issue of some of those stations really not being able to go ahead and change up or modernize with the times. So classic hits are trying to go ahead and make it where they can do that. But now, something that's being said about the music from the 90s is they also say that if they're trying to take music in the 90s and trying to test it to see if it will do really well in rotation. There are some people that are saying this. So one person saying here, of the program directors that were asked about this, they said there are 3 different camps that the audience is doing right now when it comes to 90s music. A couple of programmers say that 90s songs that test but are not good pop songs to fill it out. And some are saying they're not even close. The 90s aren't strong enough. Somebody says, much like the early 90s took the CHR format down, do you really want to replicate it with classic hits? Do you think people will listen to a Dr. Dre song, followed by Nirvana, followed by Phil Collins, followed by Tupac? And somebody says, I'd rather stick to Bon Jovi and Eurythmics. And, one of my playlists I have right now is Timeless Hits. And I am experimenting with the fact that I have 90s music I added into that playlist. It kind of blends okay to me. But again, I'm a big music guy. And with radio, as they're talking about in the 90s, yeah, the early 90s, we had a falling out because we had a lot of pop stars that didn't make any other albums anymore. And the music had just changed. 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, hip-hop was coming into play. Dance music was very popular. And stations that were rhythmic, that would be playing songs that would cross over into mainstream, like the Billboard charts were very diverse, but that's not reflected on what the radio stations wanted to go into. The top 40 or the hit radio stations, they wanted to go into a 90s, 80s format. So they wanted to keep playing songs from the 80s and add select songs from the 90s that are new, but they wanted to keep the audience they had. So they went to hybrid format. And that's being asked of here. Can they go hybrid on classic hits? I don't know if the 90s can really work well for the audience they're trying to reach on radio. But again, they've also tried all 90s format or all 90s and 2000s. It's very tough to do that. The programmer says, Every Heartbeat by Amy Grant does not hold up like Girls Just Want to Have Fun by Cyndi Lauper. Come As You Are by Nirvana. It's Not Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears. But then there are also people that talk about that the songs are overdue chronologically. One programmer says, born in 1975, you are 50 years old, you graduated high school in 1993. That's already the end of the 2554 demo, right? Quote, it should be happening now. We should be losing some in the 70s. If you graduated in 1976 when Don't Go Bring Me My Heart was released, you're now in your late 60s. Is that the demo the format is chasing? One of the programmers says that we're almost equal to 80s and 90s now. The question is, what do we do with the 2000s? 20 years sounds like a long time ago. For some of these radio stations, they haven't experimented by taking 90s songs and putting them in. And I think what they have to do is, it's just, you can't just take a decade and just repurpose it. It can't be done that way. And that's the part where in the 90s, you have to think about it like this. So if you have a classic hit station, you want to put 80s songs on, okay, your classic 80s fare. So if it's from Eurythmics to David Bowie to Prince to Michael Jackson, what you can do is, I think there are certain artists now that they definitely fit early to mid 90s. They're predominantly 90s, best represented for that. That could be like Red Hot Chili Peppers, your Nirvanas, your Pearl Jams, those songs can hold up well into the 90s. And you just got to find the hits, the bona fide hits that came out of that era. But then what you do is you hold yourself up until about Backstreet Boys. When we started seeing the rejuvenation, a youth movement in pop music where pop came back again. It's like Spice Girls actually really started off right there. And then we got the Hanson, we got the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, and then we got the girl artists, we had the Christinas, we got the Britneys, the Jessicas, the Mandy Moores, the Christina Milians, the Pinks, over and over. Like, that was a change. And that was 98 to early 2000s. And I think those songs don't go to classic hits yet. Because I think there's something about the millennials and that generation that still hold on to those songs very clearly because that's their generation. So yeah, if you want to do something with it, like, I am the demographic they're talking about. Because again, I was born in 1975. 1993, I did graduate high school. So, I mean, for me, might have been a little bit different because even when I was listening to music from high school into college radio, I was so opened up to music because alternative had just started really picking up right then. Like, it was super hot when I got into college, fall 93. And I got into the radio station there, the college radio station, and then just getting experience into Nirvana, into Pearl Jam, the Breeders. It was just, I was blown away by the music. And I wasn't really sure what to think about it because rock music had just changed. And some of it was punk, some of it was ska, some of it's hardcore. I was like, it's a little bit different for me. And of course, remember, we had changes in the music as well because there was a lot of rhythmic music coming out, a lot of European imports that were coming through, becoming hits, crossing over, and a little bit of hip hop starting to make their way. And of course, radio stations were not ready to go and make that change. But radio stations should not think that way because remember, I remember when we had a time where we had certain songs that would have a rap in it, and the hit radio stations didn't want to play the rap. Like I'm just thinking, it was kind of weird at that time. I think about like, okay, a song like Joe Public's "Live and Learn" had a rap verse in it. If you listen to it on some stations, top 40, they didn't play it. Did not play the rap. But then you would bring it back. Okay, Snap's Rhythm is a Dancer. They would not play the rap. It was like there was something wrong if there was a rap put in a song that was a song that went mainstream. So they wouldn't play it. But that changed. And the thing is now is that the audience, it's a different audience because they don't want to go into hip hop. They don't want to go too much into grunge and alternative. They were afraid of where they were going to go because they thought that these particular genres are going to go be fly by night. So they're going to be like disco. Okay, I get that part. But that's exactly what they thought. They thought some of the genres that came in the 90s were not going to have lasting power, but they did. Hip hop continues today. Alternative has faded out, from the 2010s, unfortunately. I'd love to go see more things coming back. I mean, hey, thank you, Sleep Token, for putting out an album bomb and getting some songs up on the charts. That's great. And you know what? For radio, they didn't even try to go to country. When country started becoming more pop, they didn't want to go to that either. Like right now, okay, Morgan Wallen's now got a new album, 36 tracks on it. And if he's got that out there, there are songs, like, okay, there's a song right now with Morgan Wallen and Tate McRae. And how that song, listen, if they didn't cross over with him and Post Malone, if they don't do it here now with, I already know, with Tate McRae and Morgan Wallen, and Tate McRae featured on the track, if they don't take that song and go onto CHR radio and play it, country can be crossed over. Like right now, it should be able to be crossed over. Like country doesn't have a real significant difference to what pop music is right now. There's a feel to it where it would resonate. It's mainstream. I don't know if radio stations are willing to go that route. I hope they do. It will be smart if they did, but maybe somebody will go ahead and come over here and listen to my podcast and say, you know what? King of Podcasts here, man, that guy's a good radio guy, good radio mind. We should give him $10 million right now. Have him operate a radio station for us. Like, just seriously, my dream, I've said it over and over. If I could have a radio station all to myself, right? Give me $10 million. Let me buy a radio station with it. And I'll live in it. And I will make a station, give me a good signal on there. I will make a station that will grow really well and do really well if given the opportunity. But at the moment, it's not meant to be. But I'll wait. Maybe someday I'll get that chance. Like I said, I did that with the Spanish station I worked with over here in Port St. Lucie with my friend James Leger. He gave me a chance to do that. I rocked it and turned that station around. I'd love to be able to consult for somebody out there. Hey, if you want to, kingofpodcasts.com and contact me, or reach out to me, kingofpodcasts@yahoo.com. You can do it there. Maybe comment on my YouTube channel, whatever. Anyway, content is king. Remember, come back next week because control of your content is in your hands.